Hey everyone, how's it going? It's your boy Skilled Fawn, and today we are going to be doing a Need for Speed Most Wanted challenge run. Let's waste no time and get straight into the rules. Starting off, this is a NUZLOCKE run, meaning that if I lose a race event or get busted by the cops, I must sell that car. This will be interesting since we essentially have one life per car. Next, we must beat the game. Subsequently, we must defeat all bosses. Because I'm playing on the 360, I cannot do boss skips like the PC version can. Lastly, glitches and or exploits are allowed, to expect some cheeky ways to take down bosses and get around areas. Need for Speed Most Wanted is one of my favorite games, and so I'm excited to share this with everyone. Let me know down below if you'd like to see more Most Wanted content in the future. Make sure to smash the like button, comment, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Without further ado, let's get into the run. We start the journey by doing all the prologue race events. This consists of us using the legendary BMW M3 GTR, a key icon of this game. Racing against Razor, Ronnie, and Bull helps me to refamiliarize myself with the game and also prepare myself for upcoming challenges ahead. Eventually though, Razor sabotages our ride, so now we gotta get a new one. I opted to use the Lexus for a couple of reasons. First is that it has 6 gears compared to the 5 gears that the Cobalt has. Now the Cobalt is definitely the superior car. It's actually one of the best cars in the game, but in the early game it can be a struggle to use. Let's talk about the gameplay loop. This will be more so for those unfamiliar, but will have some useful information for veterans too. The player is going after Blacklist members to eventually race against Razor, the person who sabotaged a ride, then used it to get to the top of the blacklist. Each Blacklist member has different race events. As you go through the game, things will get progressively tougher and more demanding. For instance, the first Blacklist member has 3 race events that are necessary to complete, then by the end of the game, the player needs to complete at least 7+ events. Next is the Cops. This is also tied to each Blacklist member, similarly to the race events. Cops are an amazing aspect of this game, and one feature many of the future Need for Speed games couldn't get right. Lastly is Bounty. This is tied to the cop events the player does. Collecting enough will allow the player to fight the bosses and rinse and repeat. As the player goes through the game, they will unlock various cars, upgrades, and visual parts. Another thing they can unlock are junkman parts. Now up until a few years ago, I actually didn't know that junkman parts were added on top of the previous upgrades. Yes, they won't get rid of them. Instead, they are working together. Because of this, there are a lot of ways to really tinker with the car's performance. My first attempt at this run, well, it was subpar to say the least. Not being the smartest about my car usage, cash management, and not taking the best race line. The first mistake was doing the drag event using the Golf GTI that I acquired from Sunny. I probably would have won, but unfortunately the AI threw a car into my lane, causing me to lose a ton of speed. Subsequently was the Mustang. I shouldn't have actually purchased it since I could have gotten it from Jules and her car would have been partially upgraded already. Next was the Speed Trap event. I recommend if you do a Nuzlocke run to avoid these as much as possible for a few reasons, which will be showcased on screen. One of the NPCs and I cruised super far ahead, while 2 NPCs got stuck on something and lagged behind. Because of this, the NPCs in the back had the most insane rubber banding, causing them to destroy any chance I had at winning. This one Kaze race had me somewhat flustered because this was something super random. Basically, I went down this hill, and on impact, my car decided to start spinning like crazy, giving Kaze an easy win. Another tremendous obstacle to get around was the various boss drag events, but specifically JVs. I'll talk about the others, but I found JVs to be the hardest, as the others could be cheesed pretty easily. JV has the most insane acceleration, which just destroys my cars. It also doesn't help that he drives near perfect every time, avoiding cars, debris, and other stuff. This was truly a run ender, as by the end of this encounter, I had lost all my cars and had not enough money to buy another one. Over the course of the next couple days, I started the challenge anew, this time with a revised strategy. Found I was making some mistakes in the last attempt, which I highlighted previously. The most concerning was not having money to buy upgrades and new cars, as this was a lifeline of the run. This attempt, I was going to need to wait until I needed an upgrade, or wait until I had the comfort of knowing I had a large supply of money in reserve. With an improved strategy, we pressed through the prologue once again. Similarly, with the first run, we also choose the Lexus, but its life will be short-lived as after defeating Sunny, we will get the much better Golf GTI. This is a really awesome car that can carry the player through the game, but unfortunately Big Lou absolutely destroyed me on the last turn of his race events. I guess I gotta say bye to the GTI. After defeating Vic, I decided to upgrade and use his car, hoping that I could get some time and usage out of his car before losing it. I put a fair amount of cash into the car, which looking back on the run, this could have easily put me in between a rock and a hard place. Though I do have to say the car be stylin'. Going back into Big Lou's event, we easily take him down. Afterwards, we claim his markers, receiving some nice rewards. Baron, oh gosh, he's something, and this is going to be one of the first hindrances of the run. The first event is straightforward and simple, but the second event is where things can get difficult. Baron's car is one of the fastest cars, especially by this point in the game, even more so than some of the Blacklist members after him. Because of this, the player always needs to be aware of Baron's position so he doesn't rubber band past them. His second event, the drag race event, is where things can really get tough, even in a non-Nuzlocke run. A few things to help is knowing where the cars will be coming from during the event, since each time the player attempts one of these drag race events, the locations of the car will be the same. The second thing to help ties in with the first. If you know the locations of the car, then it will be fairly easy to force Baron into a car, causing him to total out. Ultimately, we take him down. Similarly to Baron, Jules is another obstacle in the run. To be frank, it is mostly just the drag race events that are the most daunting to race through, as there's a lot on the line in such a short amount of time. Jules' drag event I would say is actually slightly easier than Baron's, but only because there's a cheese super early on in her event. Basically just line yourself up with her and force her to the left as much as possible. An incoming car will crash into her, hopefully totaling her. Afterwards, play things as carefully as possible as there isn't a threat from her anymore, instead of just getting by the traffic. Taking down Jules, we unlock her markers and receive her car. I then proceed to upgrade it with the highest end parts available. I then had some trouble after Jules. Thankfully, we just bought and upgraded the Mustang because the cops swiftly took me down while I was using my Supra, thus losing the car. I didn't have better luck afterwards. Less than 30 minutes later, we also lost the Mustang, which was a pain since I had put a ton of money and upgrades into this car. Then I lost Baron's Porsche alongside Earl's Lancer. Losing car after car, I needed to slow down and be a lot more cautious going forward. Eventually we reached Webster, the 5th Blacklist member. Things actually went fairly smoothly in these events. The first one, Webster got stuck on more than one occasion, allowing me an easy win. The last one, well, it's not the most effective, but it's just pretty damn funny to just throw your opponents into the garage. Sooner or later, we get to JV's dreaded drag race. I showcased this event previously, let's go over it again, and why it's one of the toughest in the game. Compared to the other boss drag races, JV's is the hardest to cheese, at least in my opinion. Next is that he has the most insane NPC rubber banding, grip, and seems to miss every obstacle thrown his way. I ended up losing 4 cars by the end of this, and I barely won with a Lamborghini. If I had lost that car, it probably would have been a run ender right there, and I would have had to restart. Breaking into the top 3 of the Blacklist is a tough feat since by this point, the opponents and cops are much harder than the beginning. With increasingly difficult cop heat levels to the insane rubber banding the opponents can have, the player needs to be cautious in these later races regarding a Nuzlocke run. Ronnie is number 3 in the Blacklist, and one of Razor's main boys that sabotaged our car at the beginning of the game. His races aren't the most difficult, instead they are time consuming since 2 out of the 3 of them are circuit races. Ultimately we take him down and receive his car alongside a tire aftermarket upgrade as a reward. Next, we get the last car that the player can purchase in the game, which is the Porsche Carrera GT. I would say that besides the BMW and the various Blacklist member cars, this is one thing that players may remember from the game. From the insanely awesome sounding F1 engine, to the powerful acceleration and top speed, this car has it all. The last set of races really show off the beauty and complexity of Most Wanted's world, as these take the player all around the map, compared to the shorter races before this point. Easily one of the most fun races is the 12-point toll booth one. This just shows how powerful the Carrera GT is. The final Blacklist member is Razor, the dude that stole our ride and got to the top of the list using it. His first event is a speed trap, and is generally simple. By the time the player is near the end, they will have more score since the final speed trap is like 50 feet from the finish line. His second event, well, it's a drag race, meaning that yeah, I had to get ready to lose some cars. Losing the Carrera and then the Lambo, I was not getting the results that I wanted. Figuring I would use Ronnie's car to maybe get by, and at worst sell it for like the Ford GT or something else, I went back into the races. Strangely enough, Ronnie's car worked. I was really surprised since compared to the previous 2 cars, it was massively underpowered. It did help that Razor kinda got stuck on traffic, but still, a win's a win. Blazing through his other races, we do one of my favorite exploits in the run. Doing the prison skip will save the player a lot of time and is really fun. In the final race, things were neck and neck, so tension was running high. Will I be able to complete this run? Will I need to do this again with another car? Thankfully things worked out, and we managed to beat Razor. The final cutscene plays, and as it was going on, I was strategizing on what to do afterwards. One thing I usually do is drive around the highway in the starting area, waiting until Mia calls, and then drive to that location. Well, I found that in previous attempts, I would actually fail by getting stuck on cops and needing to restart. Knowing that I can't restart since I have one life, I played things super cautiously. Let's quickly reflect on what has happened in this run. This challenge took 2 attempts and 22 cars in between both the runs. We ended up defeating all the Blacklist members and found that the drag and speed trap events caused us the most trouble. While cops were fun to run away from, they also added to our car losses. In the end, we jumped the bridge, thus completing the run. This has been Need for Speed Most Wanted Nuzlocke. This is one of my favorite games, so it's nice to come back and play it alongside seeing you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys for your amazing support. These last few months has been wonderful seeing everyone's feedback and support. I'm forever grateful. Let me know down below if you'd like to see more Need for Speed content, as I plan to do an Ultra Nuzlocke on this game in the future. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Try to do something kind for someone today, whether it's a small or large gesture. This is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.